Name Colorado means reddish in Spanish. The Spanish explorers named it when they saw the red mud in the Colorado River. There are also dark red canyons and red ribbons of sediment lining other canyons. Colorado is known for its mountains. There are 5 different mountain ranges which cover 54 mountains that are at least 14,000 feet above sea level. These are known as the 14ers, and many aspire to climbing them all. Colorado is the 8th largest state with an area of over 100,000 square miles. The population is about 5.8 million people. By contrast, Missouri has an area of 69,000 square miles and about 6 million people. The state of Colorado is littered with ghost towns. There are over 1,500 registered sites, with over 600 still having some remains from their previous occupants. The boom and bust of most of these towns can be attributed to the discovery of gold and silver throughout the state. One of these ghost towns is the Boston Mine site. It can be reached by hiking a sloped wagon road in Mayflower Gulch. The trailhead is at nearly 11,000 feet. 17 miles south is the town of Leadville. The town of Frisco, where we live, is 12 miles north or about a 15-minute drive away. We pass Copper Ski Resort on the way to the trailhead. These are flowers and ruins along the wagon path. The middle picture is Barry taking a picture on one of the previous hikes. You can see some of the pretty wildflowers in the middle. On the right-hand side is an ore chute, and this is along the wagon path. On the left-hand side are tailings that you can see that after they process the ore, that is what is left. This is a view of the cirque as we get close to the Boston Mine ghost town. The cirque is a half-open, steep-sided hollow at the head of a valley or on a mountainside formed by glacier erosion. This hike is one of the prettiest and best in Summit County. This is the first glimpse of the Boston mining camp. This is the cirque, and Mount Fletcher is its capstone. Mount Fletcher just missed being a 14er by 5 feet. You can see the buildings that were left over from the Boston mine here. This is a panorama from another viewpoint. You can see more of the mining camp. This is the boarding house with an outhouse attached. You can also see the tree line, which is the point where the trees stop because they can no longer grow because of the altitude. Now a present-day ghost town, the cabin remnants were once prized homes for the hardy souls who braved weather extremes in an effort to extract gold from the clutches of the earth. Avalanches, howling wind, and bitter temperatures were a common occurrence at this high elevation location. Zinc propped into the 1903 birth of the Boston mine. In 1912, a big discovery of gold was found. It was mined until the 1930s. Activity in the area resumed in the 1980s when gold reached $800 an ounce. Here you can see remnants of some of the cabins, plus you can see tailings on the right-hand side. Here is a view from the side of the hill. If you go down further, you'll come to the stream, but again, you can see more tailings. One of our neighbors, Tim Raleigh, stands on the huge pile of tailings on the left-hand picture. To the right, you can see debris that is left after the ore was treated with arsenic to extract the gold. Here you can see the remains of some of the mining equipment. The implement on the right is part of the ore crushing mechanism. These are some of the pictures that we've taken on previous hikes. Barry and I are on the left-hand picture, and of course Barry's on the right. And there's our dog Duke, who is sadly no longer with us. Now, we used to go up and do this hike every summer and almost every winter. Here you can see a cabin. A man who once lived in this cabin returned in 1979. He found remnants of his mother's old brass bed and his old toys half buried in the cabin yard. Here are some winter scenes that one of my neighbors took on one of her hikes there. We usually would hike there in the winter as well, but I thought she got some really great pictures. Here are some more pictures. You can see our neighbors on the left-hand picture, and on the right-hand, it's a view through one of the cabin windows. There's another beautiful view of the cirque in the wintertime. The snow can get very deep here, but there's a lot of wind, so it tends to be deeper in some areas and not as deep in other areas. These are pictures as we started our hike towards the Gold Crest mine, so we're getting closer to the mountains. Here on the right-hand side, you can see some wildflowers, and these are called marsh marigolds. To me, it's always a surprise to see that flowers can grow at such high altitudes, and they are just very abundant in the summertime. From this height, you can look backward and a view of the Climax Molybdenum Company's tailings settling ponds emerges. This lies at the site of an 1879 launched silver town called Kokomo, now gone across the 10 Mile Creek Valley. This is the entrance to the Gold Crest mine area. First glimpse of the remaining mining structures appear. The Gold Crest mine operated as late as the 1930s. There was little activity in subsequent decades, but in the 1980s, when gold prices spiked to $800 per ounce, miners once again scraped the tundra in hopes of a big strike. Mining experts estimate that there is still about $15 million to $50 million worth of gold in the area, but most of that gold would be tightly locked away in veins deep beneath the ground. In 2009, the Summit County Open Space Program paid $900,000 to buy 129 acres of mining claims where most of the gold is buried. As part of the deal, the former owners of the claims relinquished the mining permit in a move that will help preserve the environment and scenic vistas of the gulch. Here's another view of the vista facing backwards. Here are more wildflowers. Again, there are a lot of wildflowers, especially where the stream meanders through the gulch. If you look closely, you can see the cable stretching from the mining structure to the mountainside. A container of ore from the mine traveled down the cable to the mining structure. I have circled the mine shaft, and now I'm trying to follow the cable that goes down all the way to the mining structure. Here are two pictures of Tim and me We are posing by the big mining structure. I'm on the left and Tim is on the right. We're now at 12,100 feet. You can see more of the Gold Crest mine structures. And you can also see a lot of the snow that still remains there at this altitude, even though it is well into July.
Okay, now here Tim is going to describe what he thinks he's looking at. So this is just a possibility.
Okay, we think that there was a diesel engine in this location, which was fueled by diesel fuel, obviously, which was transferred to the engine, which sat on this platform behind me. And you'll see the tanks in a few seconds. And the cables, which ran all the way to the top of the mountain, probably were wrapped around spools on the metal parts that you see below. And those are the diesel tanks, which were piped. The diesel fuel was piped over to the engine, which powered the ore cars, which went from here all the way to the top and back, returning, of course, with ore, which was dumped to be processed further.
Here are some of the closer views of the large mining structure. I'm looking down into where the ore would have come down. The middle is the structure, and the left and the right-hand pictures are looking into the structure.
Okay, now here Tim is going to give another explanation.
After further investigation, we discovered that the ore cars were dumped at the top of the structure that I'm standing next to. The ore continued down a chute, which is immediately to my right, and dumped where I'm standing, loaded onto another conveyance for further processing.
Okay, now we're coming down from the mine, the Gold Crest mine, and you can see the fluffy clouds that have started to accumulate. When we first started hiking, the sky was solid blue. Now we're looking at the side of Gold Hill. You can see more tailings there, that big pile of white. And if you look really closely, there's some people that are standing on the left-hand side. Notice that the clouds are starting to look more ominous. By the time we got down to the parking lot, it had started to rain. We had hiked for nearly 4 hours and had an elevation gain of 1,150 feet. Well, this is the end of my presentation, and here you can see some references. I got a lot of the material from the Gold Rush history of Summit County, but there are articles online from Colorado.com and Copper Mountain that also helped fill in some of the details. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation.
When did they stop active mining in that area?
Okay, well, most of the mining was stopped in the 30s, but then in the 80s, the 1980s, when gold went up to $800 an ounce, they started mining again. But I don't know exactly when they finished. I think by the 1990s they were done. And so it was just sitting there for a long time. And see, the problem is that when they process the gold, they use arsenic, and that leaches into the soil. So it's really a problem for the environment. So that's why they wanted to take it over, because to extract the rest of the gold, even though there's a lot of gold there, I don't think it's a trivial thing to do that. So fortunately, as I said, it's one of the best hikes in all Summit County. So I'm glad that they were able to do it, to get it as our open space. So.
Was there still snow on the mountains?
Well, yeah. Didn't you see the snow? There was still
Yeah.
snow there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We still had snow on Peak 1 out here, but yeah. But it stays. Usually, the snow on Peak 1 usually disappears in August. But the snow that's up there, some of it never goes away. Because it's so high. You're.
Wow.
I mean, we were at 12,000, and then of course the peaks are even higher. One of the peaks is almost 14,000 feet. So if you hike any of the 14ers in Colorado, even if you're hiking in August, we did Mount Democrat 5 years ago, and in the beginning of August, and we still had to go through snow to get to the top. So, so when you're really sweating there in St. Louis, you can think that somewhere it's nice and cool, just not where you are. But
So let me just follow up on Harry's comment about gold mining, and I would like to broaden his question beyond Mayflower Gulch. As I look out the wind, 13,600 foot Peak 1, which still has some snow on it, but at the base of that, which is roughly a mile from here, there are up on the trails we use what I would call scrapings, where miners working claims have come up and removed soil and created a hole so that they can take samples looking for ore that might contain gold, silver, zinc, and then they'll take those samples to an assay office and have it checked. If they find anything worthwhile, then they're going to come back to that temporary hole and begin a mining operation. Now, we aren't aware of any mining operations, even though we see these prospector holes doing. And then, of course, the Forest Service says, okay, wait a minute now. You cannot just scrape the earth like they did back in the 1880s. You got to come back and cover all that back up again and make it look like you were never there. So that is a good thing. And all across this county, there are other sites where attempted mining claims are still in motion. Part of maintaining a claim on any of that land that's I'm looking at out there, they have to periodically go to that claim and do some work in order to show that they are actively pursuing gold, silver, zinc, whatever they're looking for.
So what year, Barry, was it that they discovered white gold in Summit County?
So all of my silver mines petered out, and the population of Frisco, where we live, skyrocketed during that time and then immediately dropped off as the market fell away. And so here we are back in the 20s and 30s, and Frisco drops down to 200 people, 300 people. And in 1962, the soldiers from the 10th Mountain Division that fought in Italy during World War II came back to this area and began walking around the mountains saying, when we were training up there, we saw some beautiful areas that now we see what Germany does with ski resorts. We might want to think about building a ski resort. So they chose an area and got approval from the Forest Service to put a chair toe up one of the mountains. And that happened to be 1962 in Vail, Colorado, roughly 25 miles from here. And then in 68, Breckenridge, which is 9 miles from here, started building their ski resort. Copper built theirs in 1972. Arapahoe, which is about 20 miles away, was already in existence back in the 45 period, right after World War II. Now we have 7 ski resorts, all within 25 miles of where we are sitting. All of them with white gold, which is snow. And millions of dollars are coming in because of all these tourists that go around year-round, and that far exceeds the silver and zinc from this area.
So it's not economically possible, not economically feasible for the gold extraction right now, with the other uses of the land bringing far more money in than gold extraction, especially with the reclamation efforts that have to be done, right?
That is correct, Harry. And furthermore, anytime somebody goes up and starts moving heavy equipment around, all kinds of people are going to show up and say, "What are you doing? What permit are you operating under?" And if they don't like what they're seeing, they're going to go appeal, and now we've got a lawsuit pending. And a lot of these people say it's just not worth it. I'd just rather build a ski resort.
Yeah, so I was thinking of the mining that they did in Breckenridge was a lot different. And so I thought maybe I could get some information on that. If you're interested in this, I could do some more work and maybe do another presentation. Do you think you would be interested in that?
Mm-hmm.
In mining, they use, in Breckenridge, they used these machines that just, dug up everything. They went along the Blue River and just, Mary, do you remember what those were called?
Well, they were dredges, and on
Dredges.
On the front of the dredge were these systems that would take up the dirt that the boat was sitting on top of the water and bring the dirt up into the boat and then process it like a mill and dump the rocks and everything off the backside. And as a result of that, you can go 5 miles from here and there'll be miles and miles of these large boulders that these dredges pulled up over heavy metals like gold that they could get and just left it. And of course now commercial people come in and want to put condos in that area, and so they'll fix it back up and plant and bring soil in and make it look natural, which is a good thing.
Okay.
So dredges were one way they did it. Another way they did it in the Breckenridge area are tunnels. So they would, and Mary Ann, you've been in the one mine, the Cowboy Mine?
The Cowboy Mine, yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
have pictures of
you
that too.
go back inside the mine. Some of the mines went in a couple of miles, and they're tracing a vein. As the vein shifts and moves around, the mine shaft is moving. And it's a pretty labor-intensive, dangerous way of doing it. But that's what they were doing back in the 1800s.
So some of the mining was surface mining, and other of it was deep mining, not below the surface.
That's right.
Some of the mining operations were what they call in Pennsylvania strip mining, where they were just stripping everything off and processing the ore and then just dumping it. And the other one was up in the Breckenridge area was deep mines, where they would go in and underground.
Yeah, and that's the way those kind of mines are the ones they were doing in the Boston mine, in the Gold Crest mine. Those were in the earth rather than on top of the earth. So, we're not experts in this, but that is, what we've learned from living here. And, we've been on a few tours, and we also have books. So, but it's like all of Summit County. I mean, there's so much history here. That's why I really enjoy it. So
one contrast to mining today versus what they were doing back in the 30s or in 1880. Let's pick on Monsanto in St. Louis, which is now Bayer. So Monsanto in Soda Springs, Idaho, where I grew up, and our family moved there in 1954, was doing similar strip mining that Harry referenced. And what they're doing is scraping off the surface, going down a little bit, pulling up the ore, shipping it to a processing point about 30 miles away, and they were extracting phosphorus, elemental phosphorus, which is used in our teeth. Stinging sensation from the toothpaste is actually phosphorus, or a Coca-Cola. You will taste the stinging that's going on is a little bit of the phosphorus, mayonnaise. The list goes on of what phosphorus is used for. But here, the point I want to make is that all that strip mining, which when you see it take place is extremely detrimental to the earth, had to be reclaimed, put back in place, covered up, and replanted. And today, you can go to some of those old mining sites, I've been there, and you cannot tell that there was a mine that went down 300 feet and scraped everything away. It has all been reclaimed. And of course, that adds expense.
Deb's dad was the Secretary of Mines and Mineral Industries in Pennsylvania in the middle 1960s, and he was one of those people that was instrumental in getting environmental laws passed to get that same kind of thing done in the coal industry that you're talking about in the phosphorus industry and the gold industry out in Colorado and Idaho.
Operation Scarlet.
Yeah, it was called Operation Scarlet, and it was where they had to go in and reclaim the land and it forced the mining companies to pay for it.
Mary Ann, you want to restate your question about this process and how this thing worked and coming across and Zoom and all that?
Well, basically, do you think we want to do another meeting? See, I'm really concerned that even in the fall, we'll not be able to have in-person meetings. So I'm thinking that, I'm not the only one. If somebody else would like to make a presentation, and you don't even have to do a PowerPoint. You can just read something or talk about it. There's all kinds of ideas that are on the Questers website too. They have a lot of stuff now is available online. Now we have tentatively scheduled in September. Mary Ann was going to do her trip to Egypt, right, Mary Ann?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm just not sure that we're still going to be safe doing anything indoors in a group. But we're still a couple of months away.
The clubhouse is open now.
Yeah.
For small groups, card playing, and that sort of thing, as long as you maintain the
6 foot
social distancing. So it would be possible to do it there.
Okay. Okay. Well, the only other thing I wanted to talk about is the treasurer's report. We have $922.86 in our account, and that's why we didn't take any more money for dues other than the state and international dues. But we had previously decided that we would switch the project from the Augusta Museum to the Lewis and Clark Discovery Expedition. So, right now, I don't know of anything they need, but, I can look into that later. We still do have the 2 benches that we made. So they have to be delivered to the Augusta Museum. I can probably get hold of them and we can deliver them so that, I don't know how many people want to come, but if we deliver them and really don't go inside the museum, I think we would be safe.
I want to thank you. I think it was fascinating to do it by Zoom. And I was fascinated by the look of Colorado, like the wildflowers. It would look so desolate. And all of a sudden, here are these very pretty wildflowers. And yet you look up and see the snow. Just seeing the countryside it was fun.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.